Warhammer has had some great game releases in the last handful of years, from Total War Warhammer's first two entries in their trilogy to some under-the-radar hits like last year's shooter Necromunda. But with 2022 just starting up here, there are still even more great games on the horizon for Warhammer Fantasy and Warhammer 40,000 fans. Massive battles, strategy, third-person shooters, there's something for everyone with the games being released under Games Workshop's watchful eye of Sauron. In this video today, I want to go through 5 of the big standout titles coming this year. To be fair, one of these games, we don't really have a set release window, but it's just too great to not be on this list. This is your first time on my channel. The way I like to do things is upfront info within, so you can stick around to hear my reasoning if you'd like. So you'll find the entire list I'll be covering in the chapters in the timeline and description. If you're a die-hard Warhammer fan, you might recognize every item in this list, but hopefully one or two surprise you. As always, if you end up enjoying the video, please don't forget to like, comment, or subscribe. I can't tell you how much it helps the channel. And lastly, if you want to find out more about the lore behind any of these games, I have tons of videos on the channel covering most facets of the Warhammer and Warhammer 40k world. I'll link a playlist for you to dive in on. Let's get started here on my top 5 Warhammer games coming in 2022. First up on our list is Blood Bowl 3, the third game in a game series that had a rough start. The first game came out in 2009 to meager fanfare and critical acclaim, but in 2015, Blood Bowl 2 blew onto the scene to capture the brilliance of playing Blood Bowl on tabletop. If you've never played or heard of Blood Bowl, it's essentially Warhammer Fantasy and football put together to form a surprisingly fun twist. Depending on the race you select to play as, your team will specialize in certain tactics, like say the elves, who are lithe and particularly good at throwing, versus the tankier dwarfs, who can slowly move their way downfield, absorbing the hits of their enemies. The game is very accessible and can lead to some very fun, clutch, last-minute plays that have you screaming at the screen in victory. Blood Bowl 3 takes all the great qualities of 2 and adds a nice bit of polish while also listening to the community's feedback. You'll notice far more customization options with each member of your team taking on vastly different appearances than the generic copy and paste approach of Game 2. The crowd, which is, kind of something worth noting in any sports game, looked less like a homogenized blob with unique and custom looks depending on each arena now. Even further, the campaign in the third game will be entirely based off of the custom team you wish to create, versus being forced to play as the humans in Game 2. With 4 chapters to the campaign, it's a much broader experience as well. Also, with a brand new, much smarter AI, you'll be facing a computer opponent that is far more offensive than the previous game. With the creation of your custom team, you'll have 12 total races to choose from, with 4 brand new ones added in for Game 3. Black Orcs, Imperial Nobility, Chaos Renegades, and Old World Alliance. Lastly, your coach is actually a central part of the gameplay this time around, allowing you to use the character to argue any fouls made in hopes of getting the foul turned around in your favor. Overall, Blood Bowl 3 is looking like an amazing step forward for the Blood Bowl series. It was slated to release late 2021, but was delayed until February of 2022, and will be up against another giant on this list when it comes to a crowded February launch window. Next up on our list is Warhammer 40,000 Chaos Gate Daemonhunters, which is also the game with the longest fucking title on this list. But if you're familiar with the XCOM style of strategy games, then you'll feel right at home with Chaos Gate Daemonhunters. Playing off of the success of the sleeper hit Mechanicus, Daemonhunters brings us back into a turn-based strategy game with a bit of a twist. Complex Games, the developer behind Demon Hunter, is looking to take on the genre by changing a lot of the core mechanics. During one of their gameplay overviews, they were saying that they want to buck the trope of being at 99% chance to hit something and still miss. The game faces this by having you fight hordes of meager units with more powerful ones sprinkled in between. This allows your superhuman accuracy to shine true, detonating plague bearers while also landing hits on much harder enemies that will throw your Grey Knights about or assault them with fell chaos powers. And for those that are unaware, the Grey Knights are not just simply Space Marines, but Space Marines dialed up to 11 with some of the best weaponry mankind can muster, access to psyker abilities, and special training geared at defeating all manner of chaos. They are one of the 3 branches of what is essentially special forces attached to the 3 Ordos of the Inquisition. The Grey Knights of the Ordo Malleus are tasked with destroying and rooting out physical manifestations of chaos. And you'll be doing just that in Chaos Gate. With a fully destructible environment, you'll be able to bash open doors, pull down pillars on hordes of Nurgle beasts, blow apart walls with grenades, just a variety of ways you can exert your divine faith in the Emperor. The game is jam-packed with RPG elements as well, allowing you to fully customize almost every aspect of your Grey Knights, as well as your battle barge, which will grant you passive and active abilities to be used throughout your struggles with the Bloom, an intergalactic plague released by Nurgle that the Grey Knights are assigned to destroy. And for those of you that read any of the Black Library publications, the main story is being written by Aaron Dembski-Bowden, who is essentially, personally, my favorite Black Library author right now, and aims to bring his expertise writing past Grey Knights novels to Chaos Gate to make for an engaging story. Now, we don't have a set release date for Chaos Gate, but with a sometime in 2022 announcement, I'd expect to start seeing a marketing ramp up in the early to middle stages of this year. I'm not a huge fan of XCOM style of strategy games, to be perfectly honest, but the fast pacing and the slew of mechanics added to the game make it feel like less of a cumbersome experience and more like a fluid murder fest for the servants of the Emperor. Number 3 on our list is Warhammer 40,000 Darktide, and I've been excited for this game since its announcement back in July of 2020 during the Video Game Awards. Darktide is being developed by Fat Shark, the same people that brought us Vermintide 1 and 2, set in the Warhammer Fantasy universe during the end times. Both games are a Left 4 Dead clone where you're fighting against an endless horde of monsters as a handful of standout characters. Along the way, you'll deal with specialist monsters, in this instance, an agent of chaos, that will break up the monotony of the more meager units. From very large mini-boss level hulking beasts to stealthy assassins and wily spellcasters, Vermintide brought plenty of fun mechanics to the game. Darktide, I expect, will have a lot of the same base layer mechanics brought into it, but across a multitude of different environments, as we search for the source of corruption in the hive city of Tertium. The game starts out with you as a prisoner being freed from captivity, much like the beginning of the second Vermintide. And what's unfortunate is that we don't know anything, right? We know near nothing about any of the core mechanics of the game, let alone the characters. In Vermintide, you chose one of 5 characters to play as on a team of 4. Each character then had 3, or now 4 specializations that would change the gameplay style of that character, with different abilities, passives, an RPG talent tree, certain specialization or specialization specific items, and ultimate powers. Darktide seems to be mimicking that with the 4 teased characters during the trailer, with a hopeful 5th on the way. From the trailer, we saw what looks like an Inquisitorial Acolyte, Imperial Guard Stormtrooper, a massive Ogren, or Ogren, whichever you want to pronounce it as, and then another Imperial Guard member, possibly a sergeant-like character. I'd like to see maybe a member of the Mechanicus on the team, or even bring back the much-coveted squats to sprinkle some dwarfs into the Warhammer 40k world once more. We've already saw them brought back in the tabletop. The Darktide's original launch was slated for late 2021, but has since been delayed into Q1, Q2 timeline of 2022, which I still think might be delayed a bit further. Darktide has another prolific writer with Dan Abnett writing what sounds to be like another amazing romp into the Warhammer world by Fat Shark. Number 2 might come as a surprise for most of you that have been following my channel, but I've been covering Total War Warhammer for years, and I couldn't be more excited for Total War Warhammer 3 coming out in a little over a month. I'm just even more excited for number 1 on this list. Warhammer 1 brought us to the old world of Warhammer Fantasy. Warhammer 2 swept us away to Naggaroth, Lustria, the Southlands, and Ulthuan. But Warhammer 3 will be wading in uncharted waters, delivering us into the Darklands and the realm of far-off Grand Cathay. The last game in the trilogy, Warhammer 3 has a massive scope, delivering 7 brand new factions in the Ogre Kingdoms, Kislev, Grand Cathay, and then a faction for each of the 4 Chaos Gods, Nurgle, Slaanesh, Tzeentch, and Khorne. This is huge, as we will traverse into the lands of the gods themselves, the realm of chaos, hoping to stop the endless demonic incursions by the forces of order. Some of the teased features are a greatly overhauled siege warfare system with 360-degree siegeable settlements and much larger minor settlement battles, making for a much more enjoyable grand battle system in a game toting probably one of the best massive cinematic scaled combat around right now. Another big drop is the Army of Grand Cathay. Leading up to this point, Cathay had only been mentioned in scanned portions of the Warhammer lore, with very little visual representation. With the launch of Warhammer 3, Cathay's lore has been fully fleshed out by Games Workshop, allowing Creative Assembly to deliver a quote-unquote true to the 8th edition style of army into Total War Warhammer universe. With 10 new legendary lords coming into the game across all 7 of the factions, there will be a ton of replayability built into Warhammer. Coupled with a hopeful combined super map that brings all the races from all 3 games into one massive campaign, you will find that the world of Warhammer Fantasy lives on quite well with Total War Warhammer 3. If you'd like any more information on the game, you can find troves of it within my channel, as I've been covering almost every major news update since announcement just last year. Alright, the top spot on our list goes to Warhammer 40,000 Space Marine 2. A game that has been defunct for almost a decade, but is finally being brought back into the limelight. Space Marine 2 has some big shoes to fill, and I'm so hyped up for it as the first game delivered some of the best over-the-shoulder third-person shooter fun I could ask for in a campaign. We'll be losing the voice acting brilliance of Mark Strong, who voiced the main character Captain Titus, but the aforementioned captain will come back in the second installment, a whole 100 years older and having crossed the Rubicon Primaris, ascending from normal Space Marine to Primaris Space Marine. We know very little of the actual gameplay mechanics coming with the game, but the biggest standout difference is that rather than fighting hordes of orcs, like in Game 1, we'll be going toe-to-toe with a hive mind and killing swarms of Tyranids. Bringing Bolter, Hammer, and Flame to the Xenos in the name of the Emperor will be just as fun as the first one. I can honestly say that if they change nothing about the game, I think it'd be great, but knowing that they'll be fine-tuning or improving existing systems will hopefully make for an even better experience. Outside of the campaign, Space Marine 1 had an awesome multiplayer that was a combination of Gears of War style with a Call of Duty kill streak system. Coupled with heavy customization and the ability to play as either Chaos or Loyalist Marines, the multiplayer for Game 1 is very much still alive and has had a resurgence with the announcement of Game 2. Across the addition of Tyranids, a possible guest appearance of Chaos in the campaign, and a frothing multiplayer, Space Marine 2 is easily the Warhammer title I'm most hyped up for this year. Like I said in the intro though, we still don't know if it's coming in 2022 or 2023, but there's a beta planned for this year which will give us a better idea of where the game will fall. But my unnecessarily high, hyped up expectations tell me 2022 because of wishful thinking. Regardless, Space Marine 2 is going to be a Xenos cleansing great time in the neighborhood. Now, as a quick honorable mention, most if not all these games will have DLC. We know this because their past iterations have, especially when it comes to Total War Warhammer and Darktide. With Warhammer 3 coming out in February, I wouldn't be surprised if we get 2 DLCs by the year's end across a campaign and Lord pack, matching a similar 12-month trajectory to Game 2. Again, not a full-fledged game, but just something worth mentioning here. And so, this concludes our list of big Warhammer titles coming in 2022. There are still a few other titles coming, like a VR, Age of Sigmar game, and a few other games geared on converting the tabletop to a digital format seamlessly. If there are any other big Warhammer titles you're excited for, go ahead and let me know in the comment section below. Even if they haven't been announced and they're things that you'd love to see, let it be known. I mean, I for one will love a true Dawn of War 4, or even a Total War Warhammer 40,000. I'd even be stoked on Battlefield Gothic 3 as I loved the second one. The sky is the limit with Games Workshop's intellectual properties, so we'll see what comes and what is announced throughout the year. But as always guys, thank you so much for watching here today. Have a good one and take care.